What is going on, YouTube? We're back in the garage for a public service announcement about the IBEX 450. This was brought to my attention by a commenter on my last build, the IBEX 450 build that we posted last week. And I thought it was really good information and something that the rest of you that may own an IBEX and may be doing some things to it should know before you get into doing those modifications. So we're going to get into that later in the video, but first I wanted to give you an update on my bike personally. And the thing that I wanted to talk about first is I bought the bike about a month and a half ago. Now, I waited as long as I thought I should for my license plate to show up, and it never did. That was about 3 weeks. I then reached out to the dealership and I said, hey, I still don't have my license plate. I'm not really sure what to do because I financed a small amount of this bike just because of, keeping the credit score up. Let's not get into finances on this show, but that's why I did it. And when I did, you don't get the title. So I can't walk into a DMV and get my own registration. They send you the registration through some titling fees and things, through some registration fees and things like that that you would do when you buy a motorcycle at a dealer. Well, that never showed up. The license plate hadn't been here. So I rode dirty for about 2 weeks when the expiration finally came up at the end of September. And then just this morning, my license plate showed up. So we no longer have to have a long, crazy conversation with police officers as to why I don't have up-to-date tags on my bike. So that's taken care of, which is great information. Second thing, I don't think this is exclusive to me as an IBEX 450 owner. I think many people may be having this issue. So I thought I'd let you know what I found out. This information comes directly from CFMOTO USA, so hopefully it will help you as well. But I have probably about 750 miles on this bike right now, but my odometer is currently showing about 68 miles. That's not my trip odometer. That's not trip 1 or trip 2. That's the odometer, ODO, specifically what shows the total mileage that you have on your motorcycle. Seems like about every 100 miles or so, mine would reset. And it wouldn't be when I would cycle the key on or off. It would be when I would hit a specific mileage. And so I've done some longer rides. I've done some 180 mile rides. And each time, partway through that would be a reset on my odometer. So I would just be cruising along. I would look down. Odometer would be reading like 20 miles. Well, I'm 4 hours away from the house. So I know that that's not the case because I rode to get there. And so reaching out to CFMOTO USA, we found out that there is an over-the-air update that's coming for the IBEX 450. It's currently in beta testing with CFMOTO to make sure there are no bugs in it before it gets pushed out to all of the owners. And I did check on my bike to make sure it wasn't just an out-of-date software because my bike may have not been updated when I bought it, but mine is updated. So they said about 3 weeks. And there'll be a new software push that comes out to all of our apps and to our bikes, and we'll be able to do an over-the-air software update that should fix the odometer issue. Now, with CFMOTO in the past, they have been pretty slow to roll out their updates, and they don't always hit their deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than 3 weeks, but just know directly from CFMOTO USA, they're aware of that issue, and they are working on getting it corrected. And I've also heard that it will retroactively put your mileage back onto your bike. So you'll know exactly how many miles you have originally done. I don't know how, maybe it syncs with your app or something, but it will know how far it's gone and it will fix that problem. But that being said, if anybody wants to buy an IBEX 450 with a lot of accessories with only 20 miles on it, I promise. I'm just kidding. I'm not selling this bike. I love it. That should hopefully solve that issue and I don't really have to do anything. What would be great is if they do the software update and we get Moto Play. Because in other countries, Moto Play is available for this bike, and basically what that allows you to do is you can put your Google Maps onto your TFT dash display and you can ride with your phone in your pocket but still see your maps up on your screen, which would be incredible. It already exists on this bike in other countries. It's just not here yet. So fingers crossed. Let's please hope that they get that because that's just a cool thing to have. Now, on to the real issue. So I'm going to throw it up on screen, but we had a comment. It was a long comment because it needed to be about the front bash plate, specifically this one right here. And the thing that the person commenting said was they were out riding on the tail of the dragon down in North Carolina, Tennessee area. They grabbed a whole bunch of front brake on their bike. The suspension dove down and collapsed. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was like a pothole or something. And the suspension fully compressed through the cycle. And when it did so, if you have a low fender with this bash plate, he noticed that this piece right here caught on the louver right here on the bike. And that made him feel like the geometry of the bike was off and something had messed up pretty bad. And upon looking into it after he pulled over, he saw what had happened was that fender had caught on this louver. Hey everybody, so as I'm editing this video right now, I just got an email from the person who was talking about this issue with their bike, and they sent over some really good video and a picture, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to let them kind of show you exactly what they were dealing with and the problem that we're trying to solve, plus a sick picture of him ripping down the tail of the dragon. So check this out.
Roadside repair. Yeah, this little mud guard doesn't have enough clearance for the fender, so we just got to take it off.
So we're going to try to correct that today. I'm also going to try to demonstrate it before I even correct it, which should be interesting. But one thing to note, and one thing that they said in their comment, and he's 100% right about this, these bash plates aren't 100% necessary for a low fender bike because the low fender is blocking a lot of the debris from getting thrown into the engine. But I know from riding that I've had some rocks and stuff throw up and hit this right here, and it has protected me a little bit from some rocks. This is actually designed to go with a high fender. You've all seen the CFMOTO Ibex 450 has a high fender option, just like a dirt bike that comes up here. It stays in place when the suspension is moving and it turns with the handlebars. So it's a non-issue on people that have those bikes. So a quick solution is if you really want the bash plate, then go ahead and put a high fender on it and problem solved. If you're like me and you love the Perry Dakar look of a low fender and you just don't ever plan on changing it, well, I'm going to modify this bash plate to fit. So without further ado, let's get into my weird contraption that I'm going to build here to kind of demonstrate what I think is going on based on their comment, and hopefully we can find out a way to fix it without disrupting too much airflow. Okay, so I have no idea if this is going to work. I've got my big bike up here on the stand that I would love to use, but I'm in a one-car garage, and some may be jealous of how many motorcycles I fit in here, even if they don't all run. But I can tell you that it is a pain when you need to put something on the big stand. So we're going to make do with what we have. I don't want any safety police telling me that what I'm doing is unsafe because I already know, and we're just going to roll with it. So let's get into it. First thing we're going to do, we're going to strap this sucker down, and we're going to compress the suspension as much as we can, and we're going to hopefully get to see exactly whether or not this hits or not, and if it does, how we can fix it and adjust it. So let's get into it. All right. So I can already see what's going on, and we're not even all the way through the stroke right now. So this is definitely hitting, and what I thought was going to solve that problem isn't going to solve that problem. So we may end up taking this off, but we're going to give it a go because if we break it and ruin it, I was going to take it off anyway. So let me show you what I got. All right, so as you can see, suspension is not all the way through its stroke. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. But right here, see this little louver right here is actually, when you go through a full stroke, catching the fender right here. And I didn't even realize this. I didn't even realize this until I got into doing this project, but looks like I've already done that. I had ridden it off road just a bit before I got that message, and I didn't have any issue because I didn't think I had an issue, but looks like it's currently, you can hear it, it's hitting right there, and I've already taken a chunk of plastic out of the fender. So smart thing to do would be run a high fender, but I'm all about the swag, all about that swag, baby. So we're going to try to modify this and bend it back in that way so that it will clear. But it looks like it's going to need to do quite a bit of clearing in order for that to be solved. Let's see what we can do about that. So if any of you guys were with me on the last one, you know that these top 4 bolts are just 5 mil. You know, if this was a KLR, it would have already bent itself for me and I wouldn't have to worry. KLRs understand me and they take care of me by, if it needs bent, it just bends and then it's right where it needs to be. No changes required. I have a feeling, and I think you're already thinking it yourself, and that is that when I bend this, when I persuade this, it's going to be an issue for me to get it all to line back up. And I think you're probably right. Has anyone predicted that I'm going to drop this nut and not be able to find it in the skid plate? Oh, give myself more credit. Let's go. Access is way easier on this side. Why didn't you guys tell me? Come on. You gonna be the friend in the garage that's just drinking the beer watching me mess up? Now, one solution would be to cut my new fender. And as you guys know, I'm not adverse to making custom parts, but I'd rather mess up something like this bash plate than the actual fender, even though it's got a nice little chunk taken out of it now. Okay, so this is not going to be a professionally done job. I honestly, I'm ye of little faith when it comes to getting this lined up the way that I want it to be. So it may not even. I'm going to take a big hammer and hit it. That's what I'm going to do. So we'll see what happens. Basically, if you look at this profile here, it comes this way out and then cuts back towards the bike. I'm going to need to try to flatten this out some. If these get to where they line up top, but this pushes down too far, I do have room to cut new holes. I can drill new holes in there to make it line up to the skid plate. So we'll see. But as it stands right now, it's going to smash this louver in, so we're going to have to adjust that. It's going to smash all that down. And so, yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but let's just flatten it out some. All right, so you can kind of see, well, you can definitely see we flatten that out, and there's even a bit of a curve in there. I'm gonna have to do the same right in here. This one doesn't seem to be an issue at all, anything from here down. So we're just gonna focus our energy up here. All right, a little bit of a curve there. I think we need to add a little bit more into it. How are we gonna do that? I'm telling you, IBEX 450 owners are the next KLR owners, and I am proud to be a member of that society. All right, definitely got ourselves a curve in that now. I think that's about almost as much as I could do without it being too terribly off. So let's try to put this back on the bike, see what happens. All right, y'all. So I've got the suspension pretty crushed, but not completely. I don't even know exactly how much further it'll go, but looks like my modification didn't quite work. It gave me a lot more clearance and I was able to go quite a bit deeper, but didn't fully solve my problem. You can see right there, we're still hitting. Um, Even the radiator guard is kind of in the way. Um, so it's like the whole thing needs to be pushed back even further in order for this to work. Um, I think it can be done. I think I'm going to try it. I could try to make it. I could try to make it a little bit more of a bend at this point. What's done is done, so we could just keep going. But it's definitely looking like it's going to need a lot of modification. If I'm feeling back behind the radiator area, the guard itself is nowhere near hitting the radiator, so there is some room to push it back. And so I think if I want to keep running this setup without modifying the fender, I may end up having to do that. And that's okay. There's plenty of room to make the modification, so I'm going to go ahead and try and see where I can get with it. All right, situation update. I just got the bike unhooked and everything off. There are these there are these right here, and they bolt up right behind here, and all they do is keep this from kind of pushing forward and backward and slapping around in the breeze. But these stays are extremely long, and I'm thinking I can drill a hole a little bit closer to this 90-degree angle, and it'll suck the whole thing back. If I reach around under here, you can kind of see my fingers right there. Up underneath, I can get in there quite a bit, and you see I can wiggle my finger. There's at least about an inch of play in there. I don't want this to suck all the way up to the radiator, but I do want to get it pushed back a little bit further, and that's absolutely going to give me more clearance for this so that the fender doesn't hit. So let's go ahead and get these off and we'll modify those. Okay, so I've tried it out on one side. So far, I think it's doing a decent job of what I want it to. So basically what we're doing and what we're dealing with is this is the bracket that goes onto the side of the fairing that holds the outside of this radiator slash engine guard. So see how long this is. Well, I drilled another hole right about there, just enough so that I can get it past this nut that's threaded on the back here. And we're going to drill a hole in that. And then we're going to cut off this section because there's a plastic in the way on the bike. So we're going to cut that off. We're going to have an extra hole here. And hopefully that will suck the whole thing backwards. So let's do that. All right, so we got a new hole. It's not, doesn't have to be perfect, I've noticed, but that is going to drop in like this and give us just enough clearance to be able to screw on. And we've got to cut off basically this whole half back here and then just kind of chamfer everything a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to use some tin snips because this is very thin metal. This is not as structural as you might think. So having this super thin around the walls there, that's not the end of the world. It literally just holds it from getting bucked around as you ride. So that should be good. Let's take a little bit more off right there. All right, that's gonna be good enough. Let's test fit this. All right, so this piece goes in right there, and this piece screws in. I will say it would be easier to take everything off. Let's take everything off. not very precise work we're doing here. We're just getting the job done. And if it works, the rest of you will be able to do it the right way. All right, nothing left to do but to button this up and see if we were right about our theories on how to get this to suck back deeper. You can see to get it to line up into these holes already, this is where kind of where it originally was. That's where I'm going now. So I think it might do the job, but let's see. I'll breeze through assembly real quick. You don't have to watch this part. Okay, let's go ahead and strap her back down one more time and see if we solve the problem. If we haven't solved the problem, I don't know. Okay, fully compressed, best that I can tell. Almost as good as before, maybe a little bit better. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be wanting to move anymore. Compression's about as far as it was. And we sucked this, like I said, back maybe a ½ inch. And you can see we're clearing by about a finger's width. And that's all we need. We don't need a lot. So I will take that. It doesn't look like it's going to hit these louvers either, even though they're bent in. So I still think you need to bend the curve in. If I hadn't, it would be touching right now. But I'm going to get in here later, not on this video, but I'm just going to go ahead and open these louvers up with a little bit of a pry bar or something just to get some more airflow. But I think that's problem solved on that. So just so you know, that is something to be aware of if you're going to run the low fender on your IBEX 450 and run that engine guard. I think with just a radiator guard, it's going to be fine. And so that is it. That is apparently all I had to do was beat the heck out of it, bend it, modify it, cut it, do a whole bunch of stuff that makes it not brand new anymore. But that's okay with me because that whole setup I think was like $60. And if I needed to replace it ever again, I could, and I'm not too worried. If you found this helpful, let me know. Drop it in the comments. Are there any other things that you're having issues with on your IBEX 450 that you'd like me to go through or maybe to try on my IBEX? And I'm happy to be your guinea pig, and we'll go from there. But drop it in the comments. Let's keep it rolling. And I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see you in the next one.